This time of year, a good hoodie is absolutely essential. But these days, it's tough to find one that will last through the season. That's why the American Giant Classic Full Zip Hoodie is made to last a lifetime, so you can count on it to bring you comfort and warmth year after year. Slate Magazine called it the greatest hoodie ever made, and from cotton to zipper, it's made right here in the USA. It's crafted with timeless style, heavyweight fleece, a double-lined hood, and reinforced elbow patches, which means this hoodie can withstand any outing or adventure. It'll be your new favorite hoodie, and you can depend on it for years to come. Plus, buying from American Giant means supporting local communities of farmers, manufacturers, and more. This season, snag the hoodie that will bring you comfort for life, the American Giant Classic Full Zip, and save 20% off your first order at american-giant.com when you use code CLASSIC24 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order at american-giant.com, code CLASSIC24.
Over the past 75 years, more than 10,000 chemicals have entered our food supply, but the EU allows just 300 additives. At Thrive Market, we prioritize quality, banning over 1,000 ingredients found in conventional grocery stores. Our Healthy Swap scanner helps you find better versions of your pantry essentials, without the junk, dyes, or fillers, and everything is delivered right to your doorstep. So shop at a grocery store that actually cares about your health at thrivemarket.com/get-started for 30% off your first order and a free $60 gift.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting, either through my website, emailrevealer.com, or just contact me directly at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. If you like our show, be sure and check out our Patreon, Opperman Report Patreon. As a matter of fact, the guest I'm talking to today, we have his affidavit that he submitted to the, in addition to the search warrant, case there against Donald Trump at Mara Lago. We have that up there on Patreon. We have a new, we got this crazy letter we found, handwritten by Hunter S. Thompson, talking about snuff films. Okay, that's exclusive. I just have that up in Patreon there. It's in the free section as well as content. Everything you hear Monday to Friday, AM/FM radio, you can find on Patreon with all the commercials cut out. Our archives are always free at Spreaker.com. You can go there and listen to all the past shows. I got a live show I do every Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Spreaker.com. There's a chat room, and you get an email notification when we put up new content. Okay, I am super excited about today's show. We have Patrick Bergy. And Patrick Bergy has a podcast, a video podcast that he puts out 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It's from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's called freedomstream.tv. Patrick Bergy, B-E-R-G-Y. And he's written several books. The main one we're going to be talking about today is Operation Shadowgate, American Awakening. But there's several others too as well. Operation Shadowgate, the American, that's the same one. Okay, Victim of the Swamp, How the Deep State Destroyed the 40-Year-Old Private. So several books that you can find on Amazon.com. He also has a Patreon called American Awakening. You can go there and help support his work. Mr. Patrick Bergy, are you there?
Yes, thank you very much for having me on it.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is groundbreaking stuff. This is breaking news. Before we get into this whole story about the search warrant, your interactions with Patrick Byrne, the Overstock guy, Giuliani, the Hunter Biden laptop, tell us about yourself. Who is Patrick Bergy?
Kind of a strange story. I enlisted in the Army back in 2005 at the age of 39, turned 40 at basic training. In fact, I think I was the first 40-year-old to complete basic training in the history of Fort Benning, which is kind of fits with my first book, which was Victim of the Swamp, How the Deep State Destroyed the 40-Year-Old Private. After I completed my required time of service, which I went in to the Army Reserves and provided basically communication support for Joint Communications Support Element out of Tampa, JCSE. And then after I completed my required time of service, I went on a contract to Kabul, not Afghanistan, to Iraq, to Baghdad at Camp Victory, and I spent a year there. And while there, we helped in pioneering the capabilities for what was called IIA at the time, which stands for Interactive Internet Activities. And it was we helped support the Force Psychological Operations Group. Nothing that I'm saying is classified. I'm not an Edward Snowden. This stuff was on my resume, right? And everybody that we work with put it on their resume. Well, certain things we can't talk about, obviously, but the work that we did was it was online by its very definition. You couldn't classify it. So I worked for a company called Dynology, which was owned by General James Jones, and it was ran by his son, Jim Jones. General Jones was Obama's national security advisor and he was also the former NATO Supreme Allied Commander, right? So after, in 2015, I was working a contract in South Korea with Dynology, and ended up having some major problems. I filed a complaint with the Inspector General. It involved national security. GS employee wanted me to give him administrative access to a classified network that he didn't have the appropriate documentation for, right? And I was the Information Assurance Security Officer, but I was also the Information Management Officer and the KM, the Knowledge Management Officer, right? IMO, KMO, ISO. And so that's why also I understand, I have a very good understanding of the classification issues that we're dealing with, like out of Mara Lago, by the way, just kind of throw that in there because or like at the White House, right? President Trump would have been assigned a guy just like me, hopefully, smarter and better, but okay. He would have gotten the contractor almost certainly, just like what I did, and they would have had the same credentials, IMO, KMO, ISO. And so when anybody needed access to any classification and network, and also would like maintaining those networks, they would have had to he would have taken because according to, so I don't want to jump ahead too much. We'll get to the filing here in a moment, but to finish up kind of how I got here is that after I filed that complaint, I tried going through the channels and there was nothing I could do. And then I went and filed an amicus curiae brief, or I'm sorry, a QTAM, which is also known as the Lincoln Law. And I filed a QTAM on behalf of the United States of America in D.C. federal court in January of 2020. It was right during Trump's impeachment. And I filed it because so many people that were involved in Trump's impeachment were also the people that were involved in my QTAM. So I actually had a copy of it. I requested a copy of it through an emergency motion for relief to even go to Judge Roberts, who was overseeing President Trump's impeachment at the time. I don't know if that ever made it to him or not, but a couple months later, in April of 2020, I was contacted by this woman, Tori, who you'll hear about later. And then she was friends with Millie Weaver, who was a journalist with InfoWars for like 8 years, a contract journalist. So on April 20th, Millie Weaver contacted me and asked me if they could do a documentary based on the claims that I had made and the work that I had done in IIA, social media psychological warfare. And I agreed because I've actually, part of the problem is I actually see this being used all the time. And so I've been speaking out on it, the techniques and such, but also the tactical, targeted, coordinated component of it. So that's what I was speaking out on. And so we did Shadowgate, and as Millie was uploading it in August of 2020, she was arrested, her husband, Gavin, and her brother, Chuck. Whether or not those two things were connected, wow, the timing was crazy on that, and I kind of freaked out. And I was in Austin at the time, planning on meeting with Alex Jones on the following Monday, but I kind of freaked out and went down to the studio. And next thing you know, I was on set with Alex Jones on the InfoWars set, and we were talking about Millie's arrest and the documentary and my work in IIA and the people I worked for, and it was like, wow, that was great. But then right after I left, things started falling apart, and Shadowgate documentary was attacked. Millie Weaver was fired by InfoWars, and it was just disappeared. The documentary Shadowgate was banned on every social media platform, and you just couldn't find it, right? Except for, it was even banned, from what I understand, on ban.com. So people rightfully criticized them for that, and they actually put it back up there. But and then even Alex Jones put together a short documentary that pretty much attacked Millie and us. It was just the most astounding thing that you could ever imagine, right? I was like in just complete awe of what was going on. And then, so we actually, a couple months later, we did another documentary called Shadowgate 2, which had a lot of information.
Again with Millie Weaver?
The first one. Again with Millie Weaver.
Okay.
Which kind of told, what happened after Shadowgate 1, right? And keep in mind, now, this is in October of 2020, just before the election. She was arrested in August 2020. And what I was exposing in there was the partnerships between my former employer, General Jones, who was at that time the chairman of the board of the Atlantic Council, right? And the Atlantic Council partnered with Facebook and Twitter and all these other organizations to restore election integrity worldwide and to combat fake news. And I'm sitting here going, wait a minute, I literally built an application that was designed to disseminate fake news and destroy the integrity of elections for the guy who's in charge of this, General Jones, right? So I'm like, this is ridiculous. And so every time you saw one of Trump's tweets flagged as fake news, right? Or every time you saw that another host or podcaster or something had been shadow banned that was MAGA related. Well, all of that targeting and all of that was largely coordinated initially through the partnership at between Atlantic Council and these other organizations, which was founded by which had my old boss General Jones at the helm of it. And by the way, the person who worked at Facebook, Kathy something, I think, I can't remember her name right now, but she was a former Karl Rove. She worked Bush White House. She was Karl Rove, like chief of staff. Katie Harbaugh, and she was the Facebook employee that had put together this partnership. So keep that in mind. Wrap your head around that. That as MAGA and as these and as Trump was being tagged with fake news, and as MAGA is being suppressed through shadow banning, it was largely being done by a former, by Karl Rove's former chief staff. And it's not like this is a conspiracy theory. You can literally go up and look at their bios on Facebook. You can look at the agreements and the memorandums of understanding. It was all very public. I only add the fact that, hey, the guy that's in charge of this organization, I built the shadow net for. Maybe out of 7 billion people on this planet, Mark Zuckerberg could have found somebody like a little less psychological warfare, that was less involved in psychological warfare, predictive analytics, and things like that, right? So in November, after the election, I got invited by Millie, Gavin, and Tori to
wait. A lot of the audience won't know who Gavin and Tori are.
Well, Gavin is Millie's husband.
Okay.
And Tori was another whistleblower in Shadowgate that actually she was the first person to reach out to me, and then, kind of like working for Millie and Gavin, and then Millie and Gavin, after she had contacted me, Millie and Gavin contacted me.
Okay.
And then that was where Shadowgate was born from. But there were over 10 million views on Shadowgate when it first came out before it got blocked within 24 hours. And, there was a big outcry, and people raised $100,000 for her legal defenses.
To clarify, this was
something most have never heard.
Yeah, her arrest was like a domestic disturbance, domestic violence situation, right?
That's what it stated, along with burglary and a couple other things.
Right.
But a lot of weird things happened with that, right? I actually could not tell you what the truth is. I know that all of the charges were thrown out, and then it was sealed. So that's interesting. An American journalist was arrested as she's uploading a documentary exposing election interference and election influence using basically taxpayer-funded social media psychological warfare applications, servers, technologies. And nobody ever knew about that. Nobody ever cared. You got James O'Keefe running around saying, oh, my God, they raided my house. And I'm like, really? Where were you people when Millie Weaver was arrested, right? And I was freaking out. Here I am, a whistleblower what can I do? I trusted these people. But basically everybody on the planet turned against them and just attacked it. It was not everybody, but the people that you would think, other journalists and stuff, her friends, even Laura Loomer turned against her. Everybody turned their back against this person. But then later on, in my book, you'll see how all of these connections, how all these people are all connected.
But
they're all
Patrick,
just protecting their own networks, and that's how it works.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of backstabbing goes on and all this stuff. We get that. But now, my understanding though is you've had a falling out with Millie Weaver, no?
Yeah, because basically she and Gavin chose to continue to work with Patrick Byrne,
right.
General Flynn, and these others. And I'm like, listen, these are the people that I was trying to expose before you even met me. What they're doing, for example, Cambridge Analytica, right?
Right.
Cambridge Analytica was, by all definitions, an IIA operation that was owned. It was a company owned by a British intelligence agency. Basically, SCL, I believe, ran by that guy named Alexander Nix. Brittany Kaiser testified to all of this, but it was founded by Steve Bannon, right? And all of these people are all connected to Cambridge Analytica, which were literally harvesting data, people's profile information and such, and building predictive models, targeting what Brittany Kaiser said under oath were the quote-unquote neurotics, right? So when they were trying to use psychological warfare, when they were trying to use IIA on Brexit, they targeted the neurotics. And now they are focused on American elections. They were involved in the 2016 election. and they were using these predictive analytics. They were doing these things. I believe that Democrats figured out that's how they kind of cheated and won. And then what the Democrats did is they exposed Cambridge Analytica, shut them down, shut down their access to the predictive analytics, to the data that they had that Democrats didn't have because they kind of stole it. But the Democrats had it before they had to steal it. The Democrats had a partnership back in 2008 with Facebook and with these other organizations where literally Brittany Kaiser worked for the head of Obama's social media team back in 2008, right? And they had that partnership with Facebook. And then she leaves, and then she goes to work she leaves Obama's people. She goes to work for Ted Cruz. Then she goes to work for Cambridge Analytica. Right, so that's how these people are just kind of utilizing these networks, but they're taking the technologies and such that they learned, and the capabilities and the partnerships and the servers and the data even, and the data is the most valuable thing, right? And they're using these things to influence elections. So that's why I believe the partnership was created between the Atlantic Council and Facebook and Twitter and those. They all, when you get kicked off one platform, you get kicked off all of them half the time because of that relationship that they have. Well, that relationship was at that time managed by the Atlantic Council, which was ran by Obama's national security advisor. So my belief on this is that they saw how Bannon and Trump used social media psychological warfare back in 2016 to give them a competitive advantage in the election, and I believe probably contributed to his win, although he was hugely popular to begin with. I don't even think he really needed it. But they did, and there was a $1 billion lawsuit against Facebook, and Cambridge Analytica was shut down. All these things happened. We know all of these things happened, and they all fit exactly with what I was trying to expose in Shadowgate, with what I was trying to expose back in 2015, before any of this stuff came out.
Then let me understand. It seems that's okay. You got involved with this documentary with Millie Weaver, and is that how you came into contact with people like Patrick Byrne and Flynn and Giuliani and these types?
Well, I had met somebody else along my journey called a guy named Robert Caron, and he had he's the one that got me connected with Judge Pirro. She screwed me over. Sarah Carter, all these people, as soon as my name hit their editor's desk, they were shut down. I've never heard from them again, right? And let me so you don't think that Bergy's got the tinfoil hat on here. You can literally go to clearforce.com, right? And you can go to the About section of clearforce.com. And you can see that it's founded and owned by General James Jones and General Michael Hayden, Obama's former CIA director. And what ClearForce does is it uses the same, it's built off the same stuff that we were developing in 2007. But it uses your social media, but it also combines it with your financial, with your travel history, with your medical, and all of these things to build these amazingly accurate predictive analytics that determine whether or not you're likely to steal or leak. Again, this isn't tinfoil hat stuff. This isn't, hammer and such that I can't tell you about. No, go to clearforce.com. You'll see that that's what they sell, right? They were designed, the company was designed, it was built by Dynology as the ClearForce application. So Dynology, the company I work for, owned by General Jones, built the ClearForce application. And then they turned ClearForce application into the ClearForce Corporation. And what it does is it provides predictive analytics for compliance for people that have clearances. Interesting. We got clearances brought up again. So it provides predictive analytics that determine if people are likely to steal or leak. to stop the Edward Snowdens before they ever start, based off their social media profiles. I kid you not. And it is you can go to their website, you order it. But you know what else? Wait. Go to their website.
Go ahead.
What else you see when you go to their website is that their partners, their client list is basically, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC. It's all the major news organizations. So basically, the news organizations use Obama's national security advisor and his former CIA director to do the hiring and firing, right? These news organizations use that. And it's not a conspiracy theory, Ed.
Right.
You can go to the darn website.
So what you're saying is that same kind of technology that they put these ads on your Facebook and your Twitter that are directed toward you. You're talking about you're moving, and the next day there's moving trucks on your Facebook. That same technology, they're using that to manipulate elections. They're using that to decide who to hire and who to fire, who could be a security risk. That technology is out there, and it's not just being used to sell us stuff. It's being used to manipulate us in every walk of our life.
To determine because it's not just for clearances, Ed. It's also for they like I just said. Well, they do the hiring and they do they support HR for Fox News. All these other organizations. Pretty much I've seen every major news organization is their client, it's on their website. Right? It's not a conspiracy theory. You can go to clearforce.com. You can go to the About. Oh, and by the way, one of the other founders was the guy from Equifax, one of the founders of Equifax, right?
All right.
This is the China's version of the social of your social credit score being ran by Obama's national security advisor and his former CIA director. So when you wonder why the news seems so tiered one way or another, I mean, Jillian Turner, Fox News host, works right beside John Roberts as White House correspondent. Jillian Turner, White House correspondent, right? She was General Jones's the vice president of his D.C. lobby company, of his D.C. lobby group, Jones Group International. Vice president of Jones Group International is who reads you the news from Fox News from the White House. And so in my affidavit, which I'll kind of go there, I submitted an affidavit in response to the sealed search warrant regarding the raid on Mara Lago. I submitted that.
Right, and people can go to the Opperman Report Patreon, and it's up there in the free section. You can read it, the whole thing unedited. Okay, just and follow along as we're speaking to Mr. Patrick Bergy. By the way, too, you can find Patrick Bergy, freedomstream.tv, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 7 to 9 p.m., where I'm sure he's been talking about this stuff all week long. And the books are, again, Operation Shadowgate, American Awakening, and another one about... 40 years old, he enlists in the Army. The Victim of the Swamp, How the Deep State Destroyed the 40-Year-Old Private. And again, he has his own Patreon, American Awakening. You want to check that out as well. Okay, so now tell us, this is how I found you this week. You wrote an affidavit, and you submitted it into the case. I think it's called Friend of the Court or Amicus Brief. With it, you submitted it, you added it to the case involving the search warrant against Mara Lago.
Yes. But not the search warrant against Mara Lago. Again, I added it to an affidavit, kind of the same exact thing, that Patrick Byrne had submitted in reference to the raid in Mara Lago.
Gotcha.
Right? So Patrick Byrne submitted his affidavit on December 18th. I've met Patrick Byrne. I've smoked weed with the man. I know him. I don't dislike him personally, but he is being led and deceived by some just crazy people.
Quick question now. Has Patrick Byrne, he must be aware that you attach an affidavit to his affidavit. Has he made any public statement about you? Has he contacted you?
Oh, yeah. But, they've been attacking me since he met with Rudy Giuliani back in January of 22. So this last January, which is the meeting I believe he's referencing in his affidavit, where he claims Rudy Giuliani told him that the appointment and clearance of Sidney Powell by Trump had been revoked and he's basing that revocation, which he testified before that he had testified that Trump had appointed and that Trump had appointed Sidney Powell as special counsel and had given her and had authorized her a clearance. So, my IASO hat on, well, if you appoint someone, documentation has to be made.
Right.
And then once they no longer have access to that, documentation has to be created that shows they no longer have documentation of that. You can't just say something and will it or think it and have people and other people are going to be able to comply with it, right? So that's part of the problem going on here.
Just to back up for a second, there's an excellent Axios article called "Off the Rails" that describes this late night White House meeting where Patrick Byrne, Giuliani, a couple of attorneys, and Sidney Powell. She was present there. And Flynn kind of snuck in. They kind of snuck into the White House late at night, and they somehow wrangled this late night meeting with Trump. And Patrick Flynn's eating pigs in a blanket. Great article. It's very funny. Then they had a whole January 6th hearing about this all day long, and there's been several testimony about this meeting. So it happened for sure. This is real stuff. We know this for a fact. And I've talked about it a couple of times too on the show on Friday nights. But I'm curious though. Before we get into the affidavit, how you met these people? How'd you come into contact into this circle with these folks?
Well, I was invited by Patrick Byrne to come to D.C. And it was, I believe, through that guy where I was going with this for. That guy Robert Karen had also introduced me to Lara Logan. And Lara Logan, Millie, and I did like a phone conference right after Shadowgate. That didn't go very. It went. She was very nice and everything to Millie, but she was on the phone with her husband at the time, and her and her husband just kind of attacked me, and I didn't know why. They were like, why are you doing this? What's in this for you? Why? And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm just like a whistleblower here. But then I found out later, like a few days later, that Lara Logan's husband worked for the same PSYOP company that I did. He worked for Lincoln Group. I didn't work for Lincoln Group. He worked for Lincoln Group, not Lincoln Project, Lincoln Group. But most of the people from Lincoln Project were from Lincoln Group. Lincoln Group was basically they provided psychological warfare and social media psychological warfare. They were doing like $200 million contracts in Iraq and Afghanistan. This is big money we're talking here, right?
Yeah.
So, where was I with that? I'm sorry. Kind of got lost there with the contract.
Well, yeah, basically, we're trying to understand how you came into this circle and how you wound up in a room with Giuliani authenticating Hunter Biden's laptop and things like that.
Yeah.
How'd you wind up in this circle?
Well, that's why the book is 405 pages, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
squeezed in this whole thing. Right?
I know. Hopefully, we'll be able to have you. I know, man. Listen, I've given up on trying to fill this in 1 hour. Hopefully, we can have you come back a few times, okay, to really flesh this out. So don't feel like we need to do all this in one day. Oh, good. I'm glad. If you agree to that, then we can take our time, because this is very important information.
It's very detailed. So I basically, so through that, so what I was told at the time was that Lara Logan had suggested, like to Patrick Byrne, that Millie, Gavin, and I go to go to D.C. Now, Millie, her common law husband Gavin, and Tori were like actually working with Byrne as like journalists, right? And so they were receiving information and disseminating the information as it would come in and out of either Trump International Hotel or the Westin over in Virginia, where we were also at. But and like literally, I was there because I had as a whistleblower, right? So I had put together like a 50-page affidavit, signed, sworn, showing election influence, but not election influence like they cheated, or not the suitcase of ballots coming in from Korea. Mine was based on, my experience in the social media psychological warfare component of it. And I was trying to, and, everything that was in Shadowgate. And so I submitted that to Patrick Byrne. He submitted it to, he brought it to General Flynn. We had a meeting with Joe Flynn. All of that is actually listed. Those are actually questions that I gave Patrick Byrne in a list of interrogatories that I had sent him for my book that he responded to, which I included in my affidavit that I submitted last Thursday to the West Palm Courthouse in response again to Patrick Byrne's affidavit. So I got to, so it was through Millie, Gavin, and Tori that basically I was there as a whistleblower and as a fly on the wall. I kind of half think now, though, that I was pretty much there to keep me quiet so I wouldn't be running around
Gotcha.
kind of exposing exactly the techniques and things that they were using. So,
Well, this is something I've talked about on this show many times. You're working on something. I'm working on something. I'm about to expose something. The people you're talking about bring you in. You sign an NDA. You got to sign an NDA. Is that what you're saying for these meetings, right? To kind of shut you up.
Well, they had, Millie and Gavin signed an NDA.
Yeah,
Rudy had me sign an NDA, but he never dated it or signed it himself, right? And that was actually right after January 6th. So we were up there from like November to, went home right around Christmas time. I actually was like on the 7th floor with Patrick, Millie, Tori, and Gavin, helping to write the speech that Patrick Byrne gave the next day at the Women's March thing. I think it was December 12th. So literally, we're all hanging out in Patrick Byrne's bathroom, right, smoking weed and writing this and coming up with his speech for the next day. It was really totally surreal. Millie wasn't. She was actually working on something. So, literally, that's how close my involvement with all these people were. But I never really got very close to. To the Flynns, right? But that's because I had kind of been calling the Flynns out for quite a while. And I did have one meeting with Joe Flynn, and Scott Bennett was there. Scott and I will talk about this. So I have a witness that completely backs up what I'm saying here publicly, that when Joe Flynn arrived at that meeting in D.C., he arrived with like 2 lady boys. I kid you not. Right? So, and was that a bad thing? Am I knocking it? No. I had 2 gay men were the best men at my first wedding, right? This isn't that. It was just, I'm here showing up for this meeting expecting one thing, and wow.
This is Joe Flynn, General Flynn's son.
Yeah, General Flynn's son, right?
Okay. With transvestites?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. And Scott Bennett was there with me, and Stephen Pidgeon, another attorney, Millie Gavin. But Scott Bennett, he'll tell you same thing, right? It was kind of funny.
Now, were they a part of the meeting or just the social accompaniments? Were they part of this meeting?
No, they were part of. No, they weren't their dates. They were working. A couple working girls.
Okay, it gets even better. Okay, fascinating. So they were there on business. Okay, let's just put it that way.
And you wonder why I have to do comedy. If you couldn't laugh, you'd have to cry, right?
Oh no,
this show is like humor.
Once again,
stuff is crazy, though.
Yeah, Freedom Stream TV, freedomstream.tv on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Because, the audience should understand. I don't need to control this story. I don't need to everything. They can go there. He's talking about this all the time. The shows are archived. So.
I archive shows there. I got to actually catch up on some of those. But I do. You can live and engage with it on at Twitch. By the way, I didn't actually give you that one. Twitch.tv/PFC_Bergy.
PFC _Bergy on Twitch. PFC _Bergy. BERGY.
That's where we have a lot of fun.
Okay.
For sure. But you also learn some things. And I've gotten text messages and stuff. Just recently, I got an email from a guy that thanked me for waking him up.
We're
getting him away from Twitter and stuff. So
we're running out of time. We're running out of time. So, but the headline for today's show is that you believe Patrick Byrne was a confidential informant, that his information is what they based the Mara Lago search warrant on.
Yes, sir.
Okay, explain.
Yes, sir.
Explain.
So,
make your case.
So I believe that Patrick Byrne, when he went in and testified on or around July 20th. That the following 10 days later, around the 1st of August, when Pat Cipollone was called back in to testify. I believe that Pat Cipollone was called back in to testify to corroborate something about that meeting from December 18th when they showed up there late at night. And by the way, the guy that let him in was Garrett and Garrett Ziegler, who I met at Rudy's place, and he actually sent me an email, which I included that information, but not the email like a moron. But he included that information that I put into my affidavit, right? So
Garrett Ziegler admitted.
All these people are.
Garrett Ziegler admitted that he breached White House security and allowed these people in.
Yeah, and I've spoken to Garrett. Garrett sent me an email, actually. It gets off track. You and I got to do another show.
Yeah, maybe you can send me that email too if you want. You can send me that email if you want. Yeah.
But I wrote about that email in my affidavit.
Gotcha.
And it kind of fits towards this. But so I believe that Pat Cipollone was called in to verify, like maybe something had been signed or written down that would have been presidential record and required to be presidential record from that meeting on December 18th. I believe that shortly after Pat Cipollone came in and testified, the raid happened. So I believe, at least in part, what they were looking for documents-wise was connected to Patrick Byrne's testimony. And so that's what I was thinking. And then, that's also why I submitted my affidavit, because I don't believe I don't believe Rudy Giuliani, what he said, what Patrick Byrne said that Rudy Giuliani said. I don't believe it. I'd need better evidence of that.
About Sidney Powell.
About Sidney Powell, yes, sir.
Okay. Now, let me ask you real quick. Do you think that Patrick Byrne, do you think that he did this on purpose, or perhaps it was a slip of the tongue?
No, I believe he's doing this very much intentionally.
Okay.
He's a long-time member of the Council on Foreign Relations. We could put the tinfoil hat stuff on. But just with my own personal engagements with him and conversations, he does and says things that he knows are completely untrue, which is why I put the email that he sent me in response to the interrogatories that listed like how he listed Tory in there, right? And how his investigators found her that she couldn't be trusted with anything because she lied so many times during a 3-hour interview with them, and just blah blah blah. Tory's literally the person he's listening to and following on this. So how do you trust someone that writes a paragraph about how untrustworthy somebody is, and then flips the next day and just trusts everything she says. This is messed up on the highest level, because these are people that have been found guilty of fraud, of impersonating a Purple Heart recipient.
Right,
these are people. These are damn grifters. They are everywhere, and I am like this whistleblower, an honest-to-God whistleblower that doesn't know what the hell he's doing, but is just blown away trying to get his message out in like a sea of a legitimate message, right?
Yeah.
Verifiable in a sea of damn grifters.
Let me ask you a question, because again, running out of time, about 13 minutes left. I'd love to have you back there. Now, the Hunter Biden laptop. Now, why would Rudy Giuliani turn to Patrick Bergy and say, "I need you to help me verify this, authenticate this laptop"?
Because Rudy Giuliani was working with that woman, Tori. And so when Tori asked me if I would go and help, well, I said I would, but, it was less to go and help with that, although I have full credentials to do it, and I did look at the information, and my conclusion was, yeah, these are some sick people. I get that.
Yeah.
They're horrible people. Could I sit here and say that, do I think that was fake? No. But could I sit here and verify everything on there that could ever be used in a court of law? No. Because of the chain of custody, because the FBI didn't do what they were supposed to from the beginning. And so it was kind of, when I gave my answer to Rudy, it was like, you can't use any of this for anything other than political benefit. And that's not why I'm here, right? I'm not here to try to do something political. So that gave me the opportunity to again meet with Rudy, because I met with Rudy, actually watched part of Shadowgate with him at Willard around maybe 13th, 14th, 15th of January, because I was like at the Willard with him. All of the information coming to him was at that time was flowing through Millie and Gavin, right? That's how directly involved all these people were. So when Byrne met with Giuliani in January of 22, they had all met at a meeting with Giuliani, Patrick Byrne, Millie, Gavin, and Tori, and their followers. So I'm just saying, all of these people that were involved with pushing disinformation to Rudy Giuliani, that eventually was used to all through the January 6th committee, pointing at how Trump was disseminating this bad information, right? Well, they never went in the January 6th committee. They never asked the question, hey, who was giving him this information? Well, that's what the 405 pages of my book tells you. Who was feeding him this information? And they knew it was garbage, right? In almost every case.
You're saying, but the information about the voting machines and stuff like that.
Yes.
You're saying that Patrick Burns and Sidney Powell knew that all the information they were giving Trump was garbage about those voting machines.
Well, when I say all,
okay.
The stuff that I brought to their attention that was later shown, like the PCAPs, I sent Tori an email about the PCAPs back in November 10th or so, saying, hey, those are all garbage. Those are just external IP addresses. You need internal IP addresses. You need the routers, the stateful packet inspection switches, right?
Let's stop for a second.
By the way, it's going to overwrite.
Let's stop for a second. What did Rudy Giuliani, how did he tell you he came into possession of the Hunter Biden laptop information?
They didn't really go into that, but he had those. He had those all sitting in his living room where we were sitting. And by the way, it was like about 3 days after I left that they raided his home where we were at in New York. and took everything but the hard drives and the laptop. But what they did take, they took his MacBook or his iPad, whatever it was, that we had watched Shadowgate on.
Well, what do you make of that?
White House too.
What do you make of that they didn't take that laptop, that Hunter Biden information?
Well, it's just that our system's like majorly corrupted on like every level. Well, at the highest level, right? You've got good people, like I wasn't corrupted, but I'm just like either a PFC or a contractor, right? And the moment I spoke up, the moment I put my country before my company, they modified the contract, removing only the requirements for my position. And then after I was gone, modified the contract that I had been on for 5 years back to its original requirements and replaced me. And that was after I had filed a formal IG complaint, right? Which you would think would be protected, but you're not.
And you could find that in Victim of the Swamp, How the Deep State Destroyed the 40-Year-Old Private. Now, Patrick Bergy, what do you know about the other laptop, the one that came out of Dr. Keith Ablow's house? You know anything about that one?
No, but Tory was involved. Tory and Patrick Byrne, I believe, were involved with the with Ashley Biden's diary. And I say that because of my meeting with Patrick at his hotel at the Vinoy in St. Petersburg. Tory met us there, and Tory had just come from Miami, and she had just met with one of the guys that used to work with Project Veritas.
Okay.
I can't think of his name. Milo. She
Milopolis, the guy Milo,
yeah.
Another
yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So she had told me, whether or not that meeting ever happened, I can't say, but she told me that she was going to meet with Milo, and she had also asked me if I would help out, if I wanted to help out with the diary, which was stupid because of the way that it ended with the laptop. I left there in disgust. I recorded my departure from New York. Because it was just, I couldn't be any part of it, right? I couldn't be any part of it. So, but they were like, I knew they were trying to set me up, so I'm leaving. So I literally had my phone out. I wasn't privately recording them. I'm like, listen, I need to get my stuff. I'm out of here. You guys, this place is freaking evil. And I literally, and that was my departure, where they were like all yelling at me and everything. In Rudy's paid for apartment, or in Rudy's paid for hotel room, right? So yeah, I've been directly involved in this stuff. I haven't liked it. It's just a big grift that these people are doing. They try to drag me into it, but they don't. That's not why I'm doing this.
Wait, they offered you opportunities to make money?
Yes, absolutely.
Doing what?
Well, we could start with Robert Karen, who introduced me, who was working with Laura Logan.
Okay.
$5,000 to stay in Texas instead of going up there. But no, they wanted me to. They wanted me to get involved with like the stuff where they had to actually hack passwords to access the data.
Right.
And
that's in the Hunter. That's in the Hunter Biden laptop.
Yeah. By his laptop to access some of his other stuff, some of his, and I believe. And
that would be good. That would be like to enter into bank accounts and things like that, and cell phone accounts, right? Right.
Yeah, and I believe that guy, what was his name, that used to work for Bannon? He was working on the laptop as well. He ran off to Switzerland, although I think.
Oh yeah. Birkenfeld.
No, I can't think of it. No, that's not it. But whatever, he actually made that same comment that they were accessing, like, hacking some of his accounts and stuff to be able to get some of the information that they wanted, and that's not what you do. That goes beyond the laptop. And they wanted to put out Tory wanted me to put out information that was not actually there, but it and just like say it was,
right,
and then see how people respond. And I said, I don't want to play. Are you kidding me? I'm out of here.
Yeah, but both Bernie Kerik and Giuliani claim that they found child porn on the laptop. Now, if that's true, and Rudy Giuliani has this possession, and the FBI is at his house, well, there was no child porn on that laptop, was there?
Boy, there was some bad stuff on there. The copy that we had had purportedly removed all of that, but how could you? How could you find all of the child porn? And in fact, there was some images that I saw on there that absolutely looked like, highly questionable. I got twin sons that are 15. I got 2 daughters. I want no part of that, right?
Yeah.
But no, the Bidens are as jacked up as it's just. It's so sad for our country. It's so sad for everything. But the only reason they're able to do that is because they control the narrative, which is what I'm trying to expose.
Okay, we've been talking to Patrick Bergy. You can find him again, freedomstream.tv, Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also find him on Twitch at PFC_Bergy, B-E-R-G-Y. The book is called Operation Shadowgate, American Awakening. If you want to hear about his previous problems, The Victim of the Swamp, How the Deep State Destroyed the 40-Year-Old Private. His Patreon is called American Awakening. Now, Patrick, what about you? We only got like 1 minute. Okay. But now that you're, any threats? Are you in fear of your life? Any threats, problems?
No, I'm not worried about. Most of these guys are just grifters. But just quick to note, Patrick Byrne came out with that video and acknowledged that he may actually have been responsible for the raid. So by Patrick Byrne's own words, it came out the day after I submitted that affidavit, which I believe he had to come out and say, because of my affidavit, it kind of seems like I'm right, doesn't it, Ed?
Yes, dude, you're on the show because I think you're on to something. Okay, trust me, okay? I don't just bring on a tinfoil of people. Now, here's the deal, man. When you go to my Patreon, Opperman Report Patreon, you have Patrick Bergy's affidavit. By the end of this, before I hang up, I'm going to have Patrick Byrne's affidavit, and we're also going to have this video of Patrick Byrne pretty much making an admission that he was the source, or that he has knowledge, he has some kind of information about this search warrant affidavit, and he doesn't sound like he's denying anything, really. Patrick Bergy, my friend, thank you so much. This is great stuff. Anything new comes up, get a hold of me right away. Let's stay in touch and tape again quickly, okay?
Roger that.
Thank you, sir. Oh, hey, if you can send me that Garrett Zegler email, too. Send me that. I'll put that up on Patreon, too. If you could send me that.
I will do that.
Oh, I love you, my friend. Thank you so much. Good night.